We are glad to present to you the scientific work titled Digital Transformation of Vocational Schools Problem Analysis, which was carried out by the team of researchers Vasyl Kovalchuk, Svitlana Maslich, Larysa Movchan, Valerii Soroka, Svitlana Lytvynova, and Olena Kuzminska. The reason we have addressed this issue of digital transformation of vocational schools is the constant search and improvement of innovative learning forms, teaching tools, and the latest pedagogical technologies to develop professional competencies of vocational school students. Digitalization of education is prioritized due to globalization processes and the spread of coronavirus infection. Thus, transfer to distance and mixed forms of learning. The task of digitalization of education is to make the education process feasible and effective, which is stipulated by modern requirements. Being an inseparable and significant part of educational domain, vocational education supplies the labor market with qualified workers. Therefore, its digitalization is determined by the need of modern employers' requirements, labor force mobility, lifelong learning, and modern conditions of mixed forms of learning. Digital technologies are the most rapidly developed and expensive ones. This arouses the following issues to address. The ability of its participants, teachers and students to maintain a digital education process effectively, ensuring the feasibility of this process through available digital tools. Although for the 1st of January 2021, 239.8 thousand students received professional education and 708 domestic vocational schools, there is a problem of non-compliance of professional training of their graduates with the needs of employers, economy and society. It manifests itself in non-compliance of the content of education and teaching methods with the requirements of the modern labor market and the needs of the individual. The research is aimed to study the problems of digital transformations of vocational schools in Ukraine, ways of enhancing digital literacy of all participants of educational process, and define the changes to be done for the effectiveness of this process. Today's system of vocational education must undergo dramatic digital changes to meet global trends in digital development so that each person could successfully realize his or her potential. A large number of craft professions are associated with the use of digital technologies. For example, these are professions of transport, car computer diagnostics, agricultural sphere, tractors, combine harvesters equipped with digital harvesting systems, public catering, working with cash registers, are keeper systems. Tourism industry processing electronic sources of information, providing electronic services for tourism, etc. On the one hand, in order to ensure the quality of educational services, vocational school teachers must acquire soft skills, ability to work with digital resources during their lessons. On the other hand, they must be able to use digital technologies in the context of professional activities of future skilled workers. Digitalization of vocational education is referred as implementation of digital technologies, which must conform to the requirements of technological process and be systematic, effective, optimal, predicted, and reproducible. Digital competence covers three areas of digital technologies use: training, professional activity, and participation in the social life. However, there exists a significant discrepancy between the teachers' and students' digital skills that brings them to different levels of performance. The modern generation of students are regarded in the scientific literature as digital natives, since they were born at the digital age and have been dealing with digital technologies since their early childhood, while teachers have obtained this knowledge much later, thus are digital immigrants. Therefore, teaching digital natives requires a lot of changes. Therefore, it is necessary to make sure that both participants of this digital education process, teachers and students, have a similar level of digital literacy to cope with the tasks and challenges of this process. To the main problems of the digital transformation refer the outdated database of digital equipment, in some cases missing or insufficient, mostly low level of digital competencies of all participants in the educational process, lack of high quality digital educational environment. However, the survey of schools principles on how teachers are equipped with digital technologies at lessons shows that only 33% of respondents have special software and using digital devices for teaching and learning. We have conducted several studies on the availability of computer equipment at vocational schools in Vinnitsa region. In 28 institutions surveyed, 8 persons share one computer, but this issue is often discussed among the teachers and their administration. Another big problem of digitalization of education is its constant necessity of upgrading. Next comes interdependence of computer devices, computers with printers, multimedia screens and software. Although according to the survey over the past 5 years, vocational schools of Vinnitsa, Khmelnytsky, Kyiv and Sumy region purchased 36% of the total number of available computers, 64% of printers and multifunction devices. They quickly outdate and require upgrading. Here we see the levels of operating systems installed on computers in vocational schools of Vinnitsa region. Only 27% of all computers in vocational schools have a modern operation system Windows 10 compatible with modern software interfaces of the internet study platforms. There is a tendency of retreat from outdated software, yet it is much unclear, taking into consideration these 65% of other operation systems. In addition, 28% of the surveyed vocational school teachers in these regions admitted to use their own laptops when conducting lessons for the students of these educational institutions. 45% noted that the equipment they work with needs upgrading, and only 8% of teachers who took part in the survey noted that they did not have any problems with updating and the database of computer equipment. The first problem vocational schools face is the lack of high-quality computer equipment. It became acute during the spread of coronavirus infection and transition of all vocational schools to distance learning. Initially, it was a default situation when the educators could not maintain teaching online because of their either low digital literacy or absence of the necessary equipment. The teachers started using their private personal digital devices to maintain the educational process. Our survey of teachers and students of vocational schools in Vinnitsa, Khmelnytsky, Kyiv and Sumy regions, in total 1,054 people, indicates that the majority of them during the quarantine had problems with free access to computer equipment and resorted to mobile devices, which were ineffective for performing certain tasks. The survey also showed that rural areas faced problems with the internet access in 52 of the cases. At the same time, the research shows that incorporating digital technologies as the educational process will make it more inclusive both for students and teachers. Digital technologies enable both parties to be consumers and producers of information. We must also emphasize greater participatory practices through greater students' involvement in their own learning. To rectify the situation and ensure the feasibility of digital learning at vocational schools, we have to clarify the following aspects. The first is defining digital competency of all participants of education as the starting point of its improvement. There are many mechanisms for it. There is the European framework of digital competence of teachers, according to which teachers can determine their own level of professional digital competence as well as that of a student. The Ukrainian platform DIA contains tests to determine the digital literacy of citizens, among them digital programs for teachers. A new solve tool, Selfie, launched 2021, is meant for assessing the digitalization state of an educational institution, the level of digital competencies of participants in the educational process. Third, there are numerous post-graduation opportunities for teachers to improve their digital literacy. The website Methodological Room contains recommendations developed by different educational establishments. Teachers are also offered masterclasses, webinars, etc. to improve their digital literacy. The Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine implemented the European program EU for Skills, the best skills for modern Ukraine, offering teachers training programs to improve their level of digital competencies. There are grants given to some vocational schools to upgrade their equipment and workshops to conduct experiments and training. Under the Regional Program of Development of Informational and Innovational Technologies at Educational Establishments of Vinnitsa region, 295,000 hryvnias was donated for the equipment of workshops with various digital devices and software for training purposes. The research shows that students also have a different digital experience, which may also need improvement. Within the learning process, both parties, teachers and students, should be able to perform the following tasks: to conduct training sessions online using programs for organizing video conferences, Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, etc. To place and upload training materials in online services, Google Classroom, Microsoft Office, etc. To maintain educational websites and blogs. The research suggests positive trends towards improvement of digital literacy. Teachers' digital skills during the quarantine have significantly increased due to two factors: the above-mentioned measures of raising teachers' digital literacy, teachers' intensive use of digital devices for teaching. During this period, they mastered the skills of working with Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, Google Classrooms, and others, as evidenced by the results of our survey. The survey involved 320 teachers of Vinnitsa, Kyiv, and Khmelnytsky regions, and 196 teachers of vocational schools and 116 masters of industrial training. The research shows among the educational technologies decisive in the education of the future, we should highlight corporate online training, a training model that allows students to move along their own route using adaptive formats, competency measuring, assessment of competency, individual learning progress, inverted learning technologies, a form of blended learning with advanced homework assignments, alternative learning styles offering students a more interactive experience, writing code in a browser, completing online tasks, online training based on competencies, involving combining training models, taking into account flexibility and adaptability to the changing labor market. To conclude, digitalization of vocational schools pursues three main goals: equal digital skills of teachers and students, available necessary equipment, and upgraded equipment and software. The digitalization will give us the following benefits for all the stakeholders of the vocational education. First, the acquisition of skills to conform to the employer's requirements. Then, it will enable the students to meet the challenges of the globalization and labor force mobility. And that it will enable different learning forms and fulfillment of various tasks within each of these forms. Thank you for attention.